Thank you, each and every one of you, for joining us today on day 3 of the AUSA annual meeting. And I think General McQuistion informed me today that we are, as of 10 o'clock this morning, just a shade under 30,000, which is way bigger than we have been in many, many years. We'll go probably over 30,000 to be sure, maybe closing in on 32,000 participants. That's you. Thank you very, very much. We're mostly gathered here today for your association to say thank you. And thank you for all that you do for America's Army, and thank you for what you do for the Association of the United States Army. We'll see him a little bit later, but we're very, very honored today to have as our guest speaker General Mike Murray, the Commanding General of the United States Army Futures Command. General Murray, thank you very much for joining us. At the association, we have over 540 national partners, most of whom are here for this annual meeting, and many of whom are present today for our luncheon. So thank you very, very much. We welcome all of our allies and partners, our international friends who have joined us today as well, general and flag officers, senior executive service officers, program executive officers, and project managers. And I'll exert the prerogative of the podium and welcome my boss, Ms. Phoebe Novakovic, the chairman of AUSA's Council of Trustees. Many of you have spent the past couple of days down on the exhibit floor. Over 700 exhibitors this year. That's 100 more than last year. Thank each and every one of you for that. That makes a difference to us, and it makes a huge difference to the Army leadership. Thank you for all that you have done. I would encourage you to, if you have time, 2 specific places: the Innovators Corner, which is a great place for you to visit and see some of the bright and emerging technologies that are being discussed, as well as the Veterans Hiring Pavilion in Hall A. 2 great places for you to have the opportunity to visit. So now, if you would, please enjoy your lunch and enjoy the company and fellowship around your table. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if I may, I hope you enjoyed your lunch, and some of you are continuing to enjoy your lunch. How about a round of applause for this great staff here and a great meal? So that once again, thank you so much for joining us. We'll now proceed with the award presentation. I'd like to invite to the podium my boss, Phoebe Novakovic, the chairman of AUSA's Council of Trustees.
Thank you, Carter. And just to clarify something, I work for Carter Ham. Let's make no mistake about that. In 1989, AUSA created the Dixon Award to recognize a career of distinguished service to this nation in the defense industry. The award is named for the first recipient, John W. Dixon, a former Defense Department Deputy Controller who went on to a successful 20-year career in industry. Over the years, the Dixon Award has been given to many of the industry's most prominent executives, most recently including Wes Bush, Marilyn Houston, and last year's recipient, Dennis Muhlenberger. This year's recipient continues that tradition. Roger Crone is the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Leidos, a $10 billion worldwide IT services company. Roger assumed his role in 2014 after nearly 40 years in the defense industry, in which he rose through the ranks of General Dynamics, McDonnell Douglas, and ultimately Boeing, where he served as president of Network and Space Systems. Under Roger's deft hand, Leidos sales have increased almost 120% propelling the company to one of the largest IT services business today. Further, the company's ability to create value for all of its stakeholders has been equally impressive. By any measure, Leidos has prospered under Roger Crone. Roger earned his bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from the Georgia Institute of Technology, a master's in aerospace engineering from the University of Texas, and an MBA from Harvard. Roger, for your dedication to our industry and for your drive to new solutions to technological challenges, the Association of the U.S. Army is proud to award you with the 2018 John W. Dixon Award for outstanding contributions to the national defense.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Wow. Let's see. I'm somewhat humbled to be here at all, but I did want to make a couple remarks, and I'll try to do that quickly. To begin with, I want to thank Phoebe, the CEO of General Dynamics, which you'll hear about is sort of where I started my career, but more importantly, the chairman of the board of AUSA's Council of Trustees for her introduction. I also want to thank AUSA for this recognition. I mean, it is really, truly an honor. The work that the Association of the United States, the work that the Association of the United States Army does in supporting our great Army is absolutely outstanding. Thanks for all that you do. Thanks also goes to my team from Leidos, who is here to show their support. I take pride in the work that we do together, providing critical technologies to our soldiers, whether it be in IT, engineering, or science, helping find the enemy, control and direct firepower, protect forces against IEDs and other ground, air, and space-based threats. Leidos and many of the other companies here today support our Army as they protect the nation and win America's wars. I want to spend a moment and reflect on who John W. Dixon was, since he was the first recipient of the award that I'm receiving today. First, as you've heard, he was the first ever award winner in 1989, an award created to honor distinguished industrial service resulting in outstanding contributions to national defense. John Wainwright Dixon was the chief executive of E-Systems, a major electronics company and military contractor now part of Raytheon. He was a graduate of the University of Miami in Florida, and he taught briefly at Mississippi Southern College before becoming a manager at the Fort Worth Convair division of General Dynamics in 1956. And it's a bit remarkable that I also started my career with Convair in Fort Worth, albeit 22 years later. He was the deputy controller in the Department of Defense from 61 to 62, and he joined Ling Temco Vought as director of planning. In 67, he was named vice president of LTV, and 2 years later assumed the presidency of E-Systems, a small, unprofitable subsidiary of LTV. He transformed the company into one with multi-million-dollar government contracts to produce electronic components for military intelligence, electronic warfare, aircraft guidance, and reconnaissance and navigation systems. When he retired in 1987 as chief executive officer, the company had annual revenues exceeding $1 billion and a backlog in excess of $1.6 billion. He continued to serve as a consultant and as chairman emeritus until his passing of cancer 2 years later. I did not know Mr. Dixon, but most of us know of his life's work. He created E-Systems into the powerhouse it became. He pioneered big safari programs in intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and he built upon that capability through a string of acquisitions that created one of the first non-platform capability providers. I am sure that some of his proudest moments were likely those spent in service to the nation and to customers like the Army. I think back to when I started my career as a young engineer, also in Fort Worth, pencil in hand, eager to make a difference as a material developer on programs of importance, whether that was by designing critical parts for a new system or manufacturing helicopters or manufacturing the latest communications gear. I wanted to have an impact for the nation, for my customers, for the military. This desire to contribute extended throughout all my subsequent roles at GD, then McDonnell Douglas, Boeing, and now Leidos. As I grew more senior in my career, and now 40 years later, my role has changed a lot. As CEO, things are a little different. First, no one uses pencils anymore, and I have found new and different ways to contribute. As CEO, I lead a company that does important work, like the work of QTC, a subsidiary of Leidos that is the largest provider of disability and occupational health examination services for veterans, offering a complete one-stop shop for medical, disability, and occupational health services. Since 2000, QTC has provided more than 4.5 million physical exams and diagnostic tests to our veterans. Like the work on the Defense Healthcare Management Systems Modernization Program, which began in 2015 and is delivering the new electronic health record for military health systems, providing enhanced secure technology and interoperability to manage the health information of active military, their families, and their beneficiaries. Like the work that began in 1988 when Leidos began its work designing, developing, and implementing modifications to the Veterans Information Systems and Technology Architecture, now called VISTA. VISTA is the nationwide Veterans Clinical and Business Information System of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Leidos, through its Systems Made Simple subsidiary, continues to support VISTA system today and announced just last week our role in supporting Cerner with the VA's new electronic health records system. As CEO, I set the tone for a company that contributes to the community. As CEO, you also have to lead the way contributing to communities in which you live and work. You give back charitably, establish relationships with nonprofits, and set an example for those around you. At Leidos, we are proud of our relationships with dozens of organizations, including the USO, Paralyzed Veterans of America, Special Operations Warrior Foundation, and many, many more. It's important to engage and to give back in this way. At times, you also have to engage in a different way, like taking a stand for issues that are a little harder to speak about. One timely example is the crisis that we are facing related to opioid addiction, something that typically and tragically begins with the innocent use of prescription pain-killing medicines. This has become the leading cause of death among all Americans under the age of 50 and can affect those most in need, including soldiers returning from combat. Nearly 2 years ago, one of my employees, who lost his son to addiction, called me to task, and together we began a campaign aimed at promoting open dialogue, getting other companies involved, and combating opioid addiction in every way that we can. If you have not already, please visit the Opioid Awareness Booth, number 8105 in Hall E, to learn more about what you can do. And if you're a CEO, we have a special challenge there for you. Veterans are twice as likely to die from accidental opioid overdose than non-veterans. Thanks to the Veterans Affairs Opioid Safety Initiative, the VA has reduced the total number of opioid prescriptions and is seeing major benefits among active duty and retired service members. As CEO, I run a company that takes care of our veterans. Veterans have always been a critical part of our workforce at Leidos and at the companies that I've worked at before. Over the years, my teams have helped tens of thousands of warriors make smooth and rewarding transitions from the military into private sector careers. Today at Leidos, we have a program called Operation MVP, an ongoing company-wide initiative to hire, train, and support veterans and military spouses. Once hired, we have a military alliance group in-house that supports and engages veterans, making the transition to life a little bit easier. I am proud of the over 20% of our employees are veterans, and a significant number more are military spouses. In closing this afternoon, I'd like to leave you what I believe is the clear theme that has emerged from all of this. As a member of industry, as a member of the community, it is my responsibility and my honor to take care of the people that take care of us. I promise to continue to do this in whatever way I can, leading important work, contributing to the community, and taking care of our veterans. Thank you again for this important award and for your attention this afternoon.
Yeah, don't leave that award up here. Somebody else will grab it. Okay. Well, thanks. Thank you, Roger. Thanks for all that you and Leidos do to support the Army, and we're deeply appreciative for all that you do in your many roles in supporting the Association of the United States Army. Ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause for our Dixon Awards. It's now my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for today, General Mike Murray, the very first commander of the United States Army Futures Command. General Murray was commissioned as an infantry officer from the Ohio State University. There's a couple of Buckeyes around the room. He has served in all of the hard positions that one would expect as an officer growing up in the Army. Battalion command in the 1st Infantry Division, G3 of the 1st Infantry Division, brigade commander in combat with 1st Cavalry Division, Joint Task Force commander in Afghanistan, and he most recently served as the G8 for the United States Army. All of those operational and his staff assignments have prepared him like no other officer to be the very first commander of Army Futures Command. Those of you this morning may have heard Deputy Secretary of Defense Shanahan in his address. In his ringing endorsement, an unusually strong endorsement for not only the Army's modernization efforts and prioritization, but a particular and specific endorsement of Army Futures Command and a personal endorsement of the commander of Army Futures Command. Ladies and gentlemen, General Mike Murray.
So thanks, General Hammond. Probably the hardest job I ever had was General Odierno's 3 in Baghdad. And it wasn't because of General O, it was because J.C. Campbell was in first cav and never left us alone. So I would just say, and I'm gonna do something a little bit different here because we do have a hard stop at 13:30. I think we got about 20 minutes left, so I'm gonna go about 10 minutes and just kind of cut it off if I go 10 minutes. Because what's important to me, and I'm sure is more important to you, and I'm sure there's questions out there because I've gotten a lot of questions over the last few days about what is Army Futures Command, what's the vision, where's it going to go. So I'd really given you a heads up to think through some questions if you have any. Now, I do see lots of old friends and lots of old bosses. And what I've also learned over the last 3 days, I also see lots of new friends. So I'm glad we've made a connection over the last 3 days. I'm sure that it will continue. And then I see Joe Anderson's here. I'm sure Joe's worked with me, and I've worked for Joe before, but I'm sure Joe's here just purely for entertainment value. So thanks again, General Ham, for that kind introduction. And it is absolutely an honor to be able to talk to you all today about Army Futures Command and really about the way forward for Army modernization. And as General Ham mentioned, we have gotten tremendous support not only from Secretary Shanahan today and in the past, but also Secretary Mattis, which just would not have happened without Secretary Mattis, Secretary Esper, Secretary McCarthy, General McConville, and of course the Chief, General Milley. We have gotten support from Congress, although I will tell you there are still some skeptics in Congress I got to work on. And most importantly to me is we've gotten a lot of support from our valued industry partners, which sit in the room today. So thank you very much for your support. We've gotten support from the American public, and we've also gotten support from soldiers. A lot of great feedback coming out of places like Carlisle, the War College, and other places. And it fundamentally is not that we have already stumbled onto a great idea and that we have already delivered capability. I think our soldiers just understand that we've got to do something different if we're going to deliver capability to them in a relevant and timely fashion. And that's exactly what our fundamental goal is to provide them with the tools that they will need that will guarantee their success in a future conflict. And let me just say this up front, since I'm going to cut this a little bit short. This is all about output. This is not about process. Process is necessary, but process is relatively not interesting. It's just all about output. This is about the lethality of the American soldier, and ultimately, it is about the American soldier, and that's what we promised to our Army, and I promise to you that we will stay focused on. I'm personally and professionally invested to ensure our future soldiers have the concepts, and that's an important piece of this, is just not about materiel. It's also about concepts and the capabilities they need when and where they need them to fight and win on a highly lethal battlefield that you have read about in the National Defense Strategy and the recently released Army Strategy. Now, I've used this several times, and I say I'm personally invested. I've said this several times, and I believe it. I have a 3-year-old granddaughter that lives at Fort Hood, Texas, and 25 years from now, when she is an Airborne Infantry Ranger Company commander, and she will be, she and her soldiers deserve the tools that they need to fight and win our nation's battles. And the stakes could not be higher. The world has changed significantly, as you know, since our legacy ground combat systems were designed and built. And Ross, I forgot to tell you, give me a heads up at 10 minutes. And the velocity of change in technologies, coupled with the speed of innovation that we see in the world today, demands that the Army change how we develop and deliver concepts and capabilities for our soldiers. Our current slow industrial age model was problematic in the last century, and in today's environment of rapid innovation and social and economic change, it is potentially, and I would say likely, catastrophic. So we established Army Futures Command this past summer to maintain overmatch and retain our standing as the world's most lethal fighting force. We will bring this organization to full operational capability in the coming year. Working with our partners, and I chose that word very deliberately, partners, FORCECOM, TRADOC, Army Materiel Command, Dr. Bruce Jetty and the ASALT organization that he runs, and you, we will build a future force modernization enterprise that meets and anticipates the needs of our combatant commanders by rapidly delivering lethal and effective future capabilities. And I would just like to echo something that the DepSecDef said today. This is a team sport. No more blaming each other. We are all in this together, and there is only one acceptable outcome. We will align with the Army strategy. We'll focus on the rapid development and fielding across the Army's 6 priorities, which I'm sure all of you have heard ad nauseum: long-range precision fires, next-generation combat vehicles, future vertical lift, the Army network, air and missile defense, and soldier lethality. We must turn ideas into actions. And to do this, we must deliver concepts, requirements, designs, and solutions based on cutting-edge technology with constant, and I said again, constant warfighter feedback. Feedback from the actual, and I've never been a part of an organization where I could say I had a customer. I've had Lean Six Sigma and other people talk to me about you got to identify your customer. I have always struggled with that. In this job, it's very clear to me who my customer is. It is the American soldier, and we must deliver them the capability they need today and on future battlefields. We must change our current process to create a flexible, agile, and innovative organization to adapt to rapidly evolving threats. And many folks are skeptical that the Army can do this on our own. And there's a quote by Job Jackson that says, "The light bulb was not invented by the candle industry looking to improve output." In our partnership with you, the defense industry is the critical link that will enable the Army to continue to regain and maintain a significant overmatch on a future battlefield. So how are we going to do this? And first, we did it by physically placing ourselves near innovative, agile industries and institutions. In our search for a location for the AFC headquarters, we considered the proximity to talent, private sector innovation, academic research, and quality of life. Austin, Texas was ultimately chosen after reviewing the data on the top 150 research universities in the United States. It ranked high in critical technical fields such as artificial intelligence, robotics, engineering, and systems developers. Although AFC is headquartered in downtown Austin, we are not limited to Austin. We intend to become a global command searching for disruptive technologies wherever they might be. And over time, we will expand our reach across the United States to work with small business innovators, entrepreneurs, inventors, venture capitalists, academic institutions, and the defense industry to create ideas and develop solutions for our soldiers. We intend to find the technologies and solutions that will enable us to modernize the force quickly, effectively, and cost-effectively whenever and wherever they may be. We will harness advances in artificial intelligence and big data analysis to quickly process information, identify trends that will help us to shape our modernization efforts. We will also leverage the brilliance of American academia, still the envy of the world, to solve the complex problems and challenges we face. We will embrace the same methods that our industry partners use, which enable them to adapt to ever-changing needs of their customers. The Army's initial efforts to do this over the past year has made me optimistic. Last October, we stood up 8 cross-functional teams aligned with the 6 Army modernization priorities. In less than 12 months, the CFTs have validated our approach by producing solutions that are rapidly delivering to our soldiers, in most cases, cutting the traditional requirements to acquisition timelines significantly, in some cases, years off the traditional acquisition timeline. Given sufficient resources and time, Army Futures Command and the CFTs will continue to produce similar results. This command will provide more than oversight of cost, schedule, and performance. It must provide value. Value to the American people, to Congress, to the Joint Force, to the Army, and most importantly, to the young men and women who will be defending our ideals and freedoms on a future battlefield. In doing so, by modernizing how the Army shoots, moves, and communicates, protects, and sustains itself, we will indeed be building a more lethal force. So let me close by saying that we cannot succeed without your support. It is absolutely essential. We want to talk with you. We want to learn from you. We want to partner with you. We simply cannot be successful without you. We want to build, fail, learn, and build again to get advanced capabilities into the hands of our soldiers at the speed of relevance. I look forward to working with you to ensure the readiness and lethality of our soldiers, to ensure that future generations enjoy the same liberties and freedoms that we enjoy today. Thanks for your time today, and I look forward to your questions. I've got a couple easy ones planted, so.
I'll let the comm guy talk, right? Yeah. Hi, General Murray. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your talk and what you're working on accomplishing. Helene Cooper, VT Group, Intel Labs. I'm curious from an integrator and innovation perspective, if an organization is working with Office of CIO G6 is it still important that we go to your organization directly, or is it okay to just stay there with a PEO-EIS sort of organization? Thank you.
Yep. So, and that's a great question, because a lot of people I think are very confused about come to me, come to Dr. Jetty, go to the CIO G6, go to the G4, go to Forces Command, go to TRADOC. For now, I think it's fine because in AFC, I took command about almost 30 days ago now, I guess. Army Futures Command will build out between now and July. So right now it's a very small organization. We're very much focused on putting the organization together, and we're very much focused on the Army's 6 modernization priorities. So if it involves anything to do with, probably there are some things you're working on that involve like the network, the tactical network, which Pete Gallagher's been chartered with, my recommendation would be go see Pete Gallagher and Dave Bassett up at Aberdeen. If it's enterprise type communications, then I think Bruce is probably still the right person. CIO G6 is probably still the right person to be working with. Hmm?
My question was along those same lines, is the industry has some amazing technology and some innovation on a daily basis, and how to make sure that you see that. In the past, it's sometimes difficult to get it out in the open. So I think you answered most of that, but as you progress, I think that would be definitely something to communicate well to industry, is how do we get the products and the innovation that we're creating in front of you so you can see it.
And there's something about this room that's really hard to hear up here for some reason, but so how do you get industry, get innovation in front of us? That was fundamentally the question?
Yeah, that was fundamental.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, and I think we've confused a little bit the people a little bit with the amount of time we spent talking about places like the Capital Factory and non-traditional innovators, and we're very interested in all that because it exposes us. And Austin is an amazing vibe to it if you get downtown Austin and get into some of the innovation hubs. But it exposes the Army to innovation and really technologies and different combination of technologies that we're normally not exposed to. So it really, the value to me is it forces us to think differently about how we're looking about the future. And Eric Wesley's sitting right here, so I mentioned the concepts, and he's been pitching MDO 1.5. Part of this is grounding our requirements against a concept, which we did very well before the Berlin Wall fell down, and we haven't really done well since. So based upon modeling, simulation, concepts, organizational structure against a specific enemy on a specific terrain, what exactly are requirements, which will lead to gaps and opportunities, which will drive the requirements process, which will drive us to come out searching for innovation. And I don't think it's any different than it's been in the past. The continuous conversation between industry and Army Futures Command on what you're innovating on, what your good ideas are, we're just as interested as we ever were. But we're also, like I mentioned, going to be looking in other places as well. When we look in other places, my concern is we may find something, but startups don't scale very well. So even if we find something, I think we'll be talking to you about how we scale a capability that we may find that we think is better than you have to offer, and you may come back and show us how what you have to offer is already better than what we found. So, yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Soldier for Life, Ted Cummings. I've been told or read somewhere that strategy eats culture eats strategy for breakfast, and was wondering what you see your command's role in changing the culture in acquisition or in bringing these solutions to the American soldier.
So the two things that I will be working on for as long as I'm in the job, and that's, Chief reminded me this morning, that's still to be determined, how short or how long, is that. So culture is number one, and then really just reinforcing, and culture is an interesting thing. And the interesting thing about the organization is people say, AFC, and when we talk about Austin, that is probably less than 5% of what will become Army Futures Command over the next 6-7 months. As everybody I think is tracking, a large chunk of what is now ARCIC will come over to Army Futures Command, and most of, well, all of RDECOM, Army Research Lab, and that's TRAC's already with me, the CFT's already with me, but what's in Austin is probably less than 5%, and nobody's moving. Right, so the only thing new is Army Futures Command in Austin. Art-Econ will stay at Aberdeen Proving Ground. What's left of ARCIC that becomes Futures and Concepts will remain at Fort Eustis. And there's a lot of value to that because the connections are made. People aren't worried about moving. There's a constant number of employees. I'm not worried about rehiring 14,000 people. I'm only worried about, but there's also a downside to that, and it's the cultural piece of it. So whether it works or not, my starting off proposition, and I will be saying this every day probably for the next 3 years, is, and I think I said this or I may have skipped over it in the interest of time, is this is not about any one organization. This is not about who gets success. This is not about who gets blamed for failure. There's a lot of bridges that have to be mended. This is about output. And that output, the only output that matters is on a future battlefield, whether that's 5 years from now or 50 years from now. You know, our soldiers are successful and they can come home to their families. And just trying to orient the organization for the next 3, 4, whatever years it is, on that outcome, I think is how you start to change the culture. I think some metrics that we can clearly measure ourselves and holding people accountable for output is how you start to bend the culture. And I'm not going to say that I'm going to have it done in 3 years, but it will be my focus for the next 3 years. Yes, sir.
Yeah, General Murray, Harry Radke from the Cohen Group. I wondered if you could give us your thoughts on how you perceive yourself working with Defense Innovation Unit, FFRDCs, and those kind of outreaches into industry.
I think FFRDCs, the relationship is not going to be fundamentally different than it was when I was the Army G8. So we'll still use FFRDCs for pretty much the same thing. DIU plus AFWorks plus SoftWorks, I see, and it's already starting to develop a very close relationship with those organizations. If you get a chance to go to Austin and you get a chance to go to the Capitol Factory, the vision is, and that vision should be realized in a couple of weeks. I think it's the 5th floor. There's a small office with a DIU on the front of it and their logo. Next to that, there's a small office with AFWorks, which is the Air Force equivalent, with a logo there. And next to that is a logo for Army Applications Lab, which is my version of those other two organizations. So they are talking each and every day. They're collaborating, they're sharing lessons learned, they're sharing things they're finding out. So I think that close collaboration, and along with SoftWorks, we just did an event a couple weeks ago with SoftWorks. It was really my first ever hackathon. I was scared to death going in there, but it's really a pretty neat concept. But I think, you know, being co-located has its advantages with those similar types of organizations. One more.
Last question. Sir, I think that's all we have for you. Let's give General Murray a round of applause.
Okay, thanks, Joe Murray. And we all not only wish you well, we stand ready to support you. I think everybody in this room wants and needs you to be successful because your success is Army success, and all of us are invested in that. So thanks very much. Once again, congratulations to Mr. Roger Crone on the Dixon Award. Thank you, Roger, for all that you have done. And thanks all of you, our national partners who bring vibrancy, support, wisdom, and guidance to our association. And more importantly, you deliver capabilities to American soldiers every place around the world. Thank you so very much for joining us for today's National Partner Luncheon. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.